having any arguments, but in this video I'll be talking about the functions which have arguments to pass, and it can be useful in several ways. So let me start making some function right here. Let's make a function which takes two numbers and sum both of numbers and return back the sum to the function. Okay, let's start making the function, as the function will return us an integer type value. So let's write int function. You can call it any name as you like. Okay, as this function will be taking two arguments, the two numbers which will be of integer type. So the arguments we write here like that. This represents the first number and this represents the second number, and whenever we take argument from the function, we can use them straight away. Like we are getting a number x and a number y right here, we can introduce another variable here, z, and we set it to 0, and z equals x plus y, and this particular code will sum the two values which were passed into the function, and this statement will add them together, and that sum will be stored in this variable z. So now we get our result in z. So let's return our result back to the place where this function will be called. So now we have built that function which takes two parameters, and both parameters are type integer, and it takes the values and sum them together, stores those values in z, and return that value back. Okay, we can also write any type of parameters here, right? Like double, boolean, string, whatever we wanted to. Okay, but make sure you use different variables for each of the parameter. So this and this this one and this one at the same place will be wrong. So x1, we can write it x1, x2, and t. Okay, so now let's go ahead and use this function, and let's see what we get. Let's call this function initialization function. Let's introduce a variable int, and let's call this variable z, as we can use the z variable here because the variable z right here has the local scope, and it can be seen only inside this function, so it can be used only inside this function, and this z variables belongs to this function only. So this z and the z below written in the other function are different. So let's call our function and write any two numbers, 3, 4, like that. And as you know, as I have told you right now, that this function takes two integer type values. So we have we are passing these two values right here, and when we will pass these two values to this function, the control will pass those values, like the first value will be equal to x and the second value will be equal to y, and then this this piece of code will be executed and we will return this z variable, whatever the value it contains. So to get that return value, we have to set this function equals to some integer variable, because this function will be returning an integer variable and that must be stored in an integer type variable. So here we have written that variable. Now let's go ahead and alert it, and let's see what we get. So here we get 7, and that's indeed the correct answer, because 3 plus 4 equals 7. And by making functions, it helps us to use them as frequently as much we want. Like we can also make this function for other variables, and let's make some more variables like t and y. Let's set y equals function and two integer values right here, and also t equals function and some integer values inside it, 56 and 23. Let's alert all the values together to see z and y and t. Let's compile it and see. Here you see the first z equals 7, and the second variable equals 68, and the third variable equals 79. And now you can clearly see that functions are very important, and they can be used in various ways when doing expert advisor programming. For example, if we make a function which places a byte order, and we have several conditions based on some candlestick patterns, so whenever some pattern is confirmed, we can call that by function right here, and that will place a by function at that moment. Okay, so that's all.